Chapter 9. Cornered. It was raining at lunchtime, so I got a pass to go to the library. Indoor recess in the gym was always noisy and confused, and the library was always just the opposite. I went to a table near the back wall to do my math homework. I was whipping through the sixth problem when a voice said, "Nora?" I jumped a mile. I hadn't heard Mrs. Byrne come up behind me. She smiled and said, "Sorry to startle you. Sometimes this carpet is almost too quiet. May I talk to you over in the front desk?" "Sure," I said. And I got up and followed her. She said, "Back here," and she motioned me behind the desk to a long work counter. "I want you to read something I printed out yesterday." Then she handed me 10 or 15 pieces of paper that were stapled together. I knew instantly. I knew what I was holding. I pretended to read the first sheet, but I hardly saw the words. My thinking had kicked up into overdrive. I was in trouble. I needed a way out. I needed a major distraction, something like a fire drill or maybe an earthquake. It took a lot of effort not to start breathing fast, and I was afraid my cheeks would turn bright red. I turned to the second page, and then the third, barely reading, just stalling for time. Finally, I had to say something, so I said, "It looks like a list." Mrs. Byrne said, "Turn to page 5, Nora, and read some of the entries out loud. But please keep your voice down." I skipped ahead and started to read. MIT Internet Registration Homepage. Issues in Lightwave Theory. JaneGoodall.org homepage. Fuel cell technology comes of age. Hybrid vehicles find new homes. Cold fusion anomalies. Field Museum Egyptian Department. Richard Feynman's lecture on. Mrs. Byrne interrupted and said, "Thank you, Nora, that's enough." "Can you tell me what you've been reading?" "Something from the computer, right?" I looked into her face. She wasn't buying my innocent act, not even a little bit. Mrs. Byrne shook her head. "It's more like something from your computer, Nora. More precisely, that information is stored under your login account on the Media Center's main server. When I began to back up the system yesterday afternoon, one terminal was still active, the one in the corner. I went to shut it down, but something on the internet browser caught my eye. Something about the Connecticut Mastery tests. I didn't remember any teachers using that terminal, so I checked the login name, and it was you, Nora. You forgot to log out when you went to the meeting in Mrs. Hackney's office. I know you might think I was prying, but it's part of my job to monitor the internet activity of all student accounts. So I looked around a little." Mrs. Byrne looked me right in the eye. She said, "What you're holding there are the first 13 pages of a 159-page document that lists the web pages you have visited or accessed since the beginning of the school year. Your files are using 5 gigabytes of storage space on the server. Do you know what that means, Nora?" "I think you do, but I'll tell you anyway. It means that so far this school year, you have gathered more information for access and retrieval than all the rest of the 4th and 5th grade students combined. Just glancing through the web pages of the links that you have your hands there, it appears that you have done excessive research on alternate energy sources. You have been trading emails with a primate expert at the Jane Goodall Institute. You have a keen interest in educational theory, and apparently you have been enrolled in a college-level astronomy course over the internet at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Again she paused. Then, speaking slowly, Mrs. Burns said, "But the most interesting thing to me is the fact that you are the child who failed her basic internet research project 3 weeks ago and therefore got a D in library skills. So, Nora, how should I be thinking about all this new information?" Mrs. Byrne had me. I was trapped. When an animal gets backed into a corner, zoologists say that animals will usually choose one of three instinctive responses. But I've never considered myself an animal. I wasn't going to fight, or run away, or play dead. This was not the time for instincts. I had to think my way out of this corner. It's not a coincidence that cartoons show an idea as a light bulb, because when an idea hits, it feels like someone has flipped on a big switch. And an idea blasted me right there in front of Mrs. Byrne. Instant light. Yes, I was certainly in a corner, but it wasn't a small corner, and I didn't really have to get out of it. There was plenty of room in the corner for someone to join me. In fact, I decided that it actually might be good to have someone else in my corner.